Much of what is known about the Texas Mexican Mafia comes from successful investigations led by local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. Each case provides a glimpse inside the dark and violent world of the gang and how the gang operates in the shadows.
Two recent cases that are part of ongoing investigations highlight how the gang takes care of members who fall out of favor with leadership. The Night Team's Tim Gerber takes a look at those cases in its Defenders investigation.
Just days before Balcones Heights police officer Julian Pesina was murdered, Bexar County deputies raided a home where his name was found on a roster of known Mexican MA associates. That home belonged to this man, Jerry Drogo, one of the three men accused of killing Pesina.
Jerry Drogo is accused of setting up a meeting with Julian Pesina on May 4th outside of the tattoo shop Pesina co-owned. They talked until two gunmen opened fire on Pesina. The Balcones Heights police officer was reportedly on a roster of Mexican MA associates.
It is a blood in, blood out organization, so most members get in by killing somebody, and they know the only way to get out is to die. They know that going in.
Gabe Morales, an expert on the Texas Mexican Mafia, says when the gang leadership decides it's time for a member to go, their time is short.
For a high-level person or somebody they want to make a high-level example of, it's going to be very brutal, obvious signs that was done by them. There'll be no questions about it.
Other times, the gang likes to keep its work hidden.
That's probably what happened in the Ruben Menes-Reyes case. Used him for several hits and decided now this guy's got to go.
According to a federal indictment, Reyes said he was serving as the lieutenant of lieutenants in 2014 when he murdered three high-ranking members in three separate hits on the same day. Reyes lured each man to their death, telling them they had jobs to do. Instead, they were shot, then buried in pre-dug graves near Pearsall. The victims had been stripped of their rankings for mishandling $60,000 and making poor decisions.
They should know it's coming. A lot of times they are totally surprised because if they don't know they did anything wrong, and sometimes it may be politics.
Months later, the tables turned on Reyes. A hit squad went to Reyes' apartment and opened fire when he opened the door. Reyes survived the attempted hit. Days later, he was telling all to SAPD homicide detectives, violating the gang's rule of not cooperating with police. But he's not the only one in trouble.
The people who botched that hit now are in big trouble too. That's the thing with these organizations. They mostly, again, kill each other, and that's the way they've operated for decades now.
The three men accused of killing Pesina remain in custody. They are awaiting trial. Meanwhile, Reyes is still in federal custody. He has until April to enter a plea or go to trial. Our coverage continues online at ksat.com/mafia. I'm Tim Gerber, KSAT 12.
New information about why a Balcones Heights police officer and self-proclaimed gang member was executed by the Texas Mexican Mafia in May of 2014.
The documents filed last week reveal that Officer Julian Pesina claimed membership in a brutal prison gang and was even selling drugs to Mexican Mafia members before he was ambushed. The Night Team's Tim Gerber has new details in this Defenders report.
These court documents, part of the federal government's case against Alfredo Cardona and Jesse Santibanez, reveal Julian Pesina's May 2014 execution was planned well in advance. The documents state Pesina claimed to be a Texas Mexican Mafia member who had not reported to the gang in 6 years. For that, he was fined $6,000. Pesina then allegedly reported to the Northside Texas Mexican Mafia leadership, including Gang Sergeant Jerry Drogo and Lieutenant Ruben Reyes. The government contends Pesina began selling drugs to Mexican Mafia members. The documents state Drogo once took Pesina with him to collect the dime, which is a street tax to drug dealers. And one of those drug dealers identified Pesina as a cop. Pesina gave two different stories on how he became a member of the gang and his tattoos associated with the gang, which he proudly displayed on his Facebook profile. Those tattoos began raising the suspicions of Pesina's fellow officers who took their concerns to their chief. Reyes passed the information on to his superiors, who ordered Pesina's murder. Reyes told Drogo to put a team together for the murder. He tapped Cardona, a gang prospect, and Santibanez, a member in bad standing who owed a favor, to be the gunmen. The three men studied Pesina's routine and even dug a hole in which to bury him before shooting him. On the night of the murder, the documents say Drogo called Pesina to arrange picking up his weekly dime payment. Drogo dropped off Cardona and Santibanez on the side of the building, and they ambushed Pesina, killing him with gunfire from a shotgun and a handgun. The crime caught on the store's surveillance camera and an undercover surveillance camera set up by the FBI, which was investigating Pesina. Those new details are part of the government's plea deals offered to Cardona and Santibanez. They're both being offered 30-year sentences with 5 years of supervised release in exchange for guilty pleas. Jerry Drogo pled guilty to his role in the murder last year and is waiting to learn what his sentence will be. Meanwhile, Ruben Reyes pled guilty to several murders he committed for the gang, including Pesina's. A federal judge handed him 5 life sentences in December.
Police have 3 suspects in custody, all in connection with the murder of Balcones Heights police officer Julian Pesina. 2 arrests made today, one not for the murder, but for allegedly helping one of those accused killers hide from officers. By the way, this is not the first brush with the law for the accused killers involved. The night team's Stephanie Cerna shows us how far back their troubles with the law go. She's live in the newsroom. Stephanie?
Well, Steve, today police arrested 25-year-old Jesse Santibanez after they tracked him down to his girlfriend's house on the city's south side. He's believed to be one of the shooters in this case.
Man, I'm innocent, man. Y'all say all y'all want, man.
That's what Jesse Santibanez said after his arrest around noon today. He was reportedly found at his girlfriend's house hiding under a bed. It wasn't the first encounter he had with officers. Santibanez has a criminal record going back before 2008, serving time in a juvenile facility. Then, as an adult, he was arrested for charges including drug possession, resisting arrest, and theft of a vehicle. The other accused shooter in the case, Alfred Cardona, has also been in custody for drug possession as well as DWI. And the first suspect arrested in the case, 33-year-old Jerry Drogo, he's accused of luring Pesina to his car in front of Pesina's tattoo shop when he was gunned down. He also allegedly drove the gunman away from the scene. Drogo's troubles with the law go back to 2001, charged with unlawful carrying of a weapon. Later, burglary of a vehicle, then a building, and in 2009, he also picked up a drug charge. Today, Santibanez's girlfriend, 24-year-old Priscilla Berlanga, was charged with hindering the arrest of Santibanez. Drogo was caught last month in Ohio. Once he returned to San Antonio last week, police say he named Cardona and Santibanez as the gunmen in the crime. All 3 are charged with a murder.
Because Officer Julian Pesina was ambushed outside his tattoo shop on Sunday, May 4th. But the question remains, was it possibly a gang hit? Now, as we first reported, our sources are looking into a possible connection between Pesina and the Mexican Mafia. And for the first time, the city of Balcones Heights sat down with our Melissa Vega to talk about the murdered officer. She's here tonight with what she's uncovered. Melissa?
The San Antonio Police Department is investigating Officer Julian Pesina's murder, and the FBI tells me they are assisting SAPD with that investigation. Pesina was a Balcones Heights police officer for the past 7 years. So what kind of officer was he? And what about those allegations against him? That's what we went to find out.
He was a son and he was a father.
A Balcones Heights police officer brutally murdered.
This is a very tragic circumstance.
29-year-old Julian Pesina was shot and killed outside the notorious ink tattoo shop he co-owned off Hillcrest near Babcock back on May 4th.
This man was a police officer who served the public.
More than a week after his death, questions linger as to who was this Balcones Heights police officer that took an oath to protect and serve. A man with a badge, but underneath his uniform, a man whose sources say may have had suspected ties to the Mexican Mafia. What is your response to the allegations?
They're only allegations and they're only speculation. And it's unfair, and it would be counter to the SAPD investigation to speculate further on any of that, because that's all that is. And should they be proven to be true, they're not necessarily reflective of everybody else in an organization. And it's very important to keep that in mind.
The city of Balcones Heights has 21 police officers, a small department where officers work patrol, traffic, special events. There's a lot of crossover. As for Officer Pesina's role,
he did everything, and all indications are he did a very good job.
Balcones Heights says it's cooperating with investigators as they also deal with the fact that they've lost one of their own.
That's first and foremost. He was a co-worker and a colleague. Now, all of the other circumstances have to be sorted through, and justice has to be served all the way around, however that happens.
Of course, we will continue to follow this investigation very closely and keep you updated. But if you do know anything about the officer's murder, you're asked to call police. Melissa Vega, News 4, San Antonio.
We start with new developments in the case of a murdered Balcones Heights police officer.
3 Texas Mexican Mafia members charged with what could and they could be facing the death penalty. Alfred Cardona, Jerry Edrago, and Jesse Santibanez appearing together in federal court this afternoon for a status hearing.
The 3 men accused of murdering Officer Julian Pesina outside his tattoo shop. Pesina, also a Mexican Mafia member, allegedly dealing drugs and paying a tax to that gang. He was killed when the Mexican Mafia discovered he was also a cop.
The judge still waiting for the U.S. Attorney General to decide if these men are going to be eligible for the death penalty. This case set to go to trial next month, but it's now been moved to next March.
Breaking news, 2 members of the Texas Mexican Mafia are headed to federal prison for the rest of their lives for the murder of Balcones Heights police officer Julian Pesina. The gang members ambushed Pesina in May 2014 at a tattoo shop he co-owned. Testimony during the trial revealed Pesina had ties to the gang.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Really excited to bring you guys this one today. This story involves the Texas Mexican Mafia, a police officer who was also claiming to be a member of the Texas Mexican Mafia. There's still some kind of... I'm kind of hearing a little bit of both sides that he wasn't. I believe he was a member. There were reports said that he hadn't really checked in properly in some time. But like I said in the beginning, he was a police officer. And when members of the Texas Mexican Mafia found that out, it was only a matter of time before his life was ended. We're going to be talking about Julian Pesina. Really quick, I want to give a shout out to one of my favorite crime YouTube channels. It's up there in the top 2-3, The Killer Chronicles. They are awesome, and they did a very, very good story on this guy, better than anything I could ever do, that's for sure. So please go check that out. Again, that's The Killer Chronicles. They don't drop often. I would say they drop once a month, every month and a half or 2. I mean, really, I want to say they don't come out with a lot of content, but when they do, it's fire. And they have very good stories. So please go check that out. Killer Chronicles, awesome YouTube channel. Another one, Pop a Lot. Big shout out to that guy. The way he does his videos inspired me to do mine. I was watching his channel like 4 years ago, something like that. 2020 is when I first started watching him. So yeah, guys, just wanted to give a quick shout out to some YouTube channels that I really follow and really enjoy. So Julian Pesina, he was a Balcones Heights police officer for 7 years. Before we get too much into that story, we're going to be. I just want to give a little background on the Texas Mexican Mafia. They are an offshoot of the original Mexican Mafia that originated out of California. They came to power really in the 80s. Its founder, Roberto Huerta, or just Herb Huerta. I believe he right now is in Florence, Colorado in the Supermax prison. I saw a story that he was suing prison officials, something for, I don't know the exact particular reason, but yeah, he's in the big Supermax where all the big top dogs go. So first came to power. It's an offshoot. First gained power in the 80s. And it's kind of your typical story. Behind bars, the gang members traffic drugs, banded together for protection. When members were released, they're expected to expand the enterprise. Violence in the streets picks up. Everything picks up. Many Texas Mexican Mafia members were from San Antonio. That's why they chose San Antonio to become branch headquarters. Members could join only if they were asked by a sponsor or padrino. To gain membership, inductees had to commit a criminal act. That's really common in a lot of these prison gangs, kind of like a blood in, blood out thing. You see that with the Brand, the Aryan Brotherhood. Same thing with these guys, man. When you're in for life, and the only way to get out is basically death. I mean, there's always those extreme cases or people, will turn government's witness, maybe get put in witness protection, or, there's always a few outliers, but for the most part, this is what it takes, all right? which could include the murder of an enemy. And according to Mexican Mafia constitution, cooperation with law enforcement was punishable by death. Julian Pesina's execution-style killing in 2014 was a textbook example of a Mexican Mafia hit, according to Tony Rafael. The pen name of the author he wrote a book about the gang. When it says pen name, I believe that's not his real name, and that's for his own protection, because they will kill you. They will kill you if they find out you're writing a huge book and exposing a bunch of their secrets, or you're talking to informants. They will come after you. And it says it's a textbook killing. This was really interesting. This is what I read. The smaller weapon is used to pin down or debilitate the target, the author told the Washington Post, and then they finish them off with the rifle. Raphael said it's not uncommon to find civil servants among the gang's ranks. One of the organization's strength, he said, is its ability to coerce people and even other gangs into working to benefit La M. They're very, very good at manipulating people, Raphael said. They've had female corrections officers and manipulated them into literally marrying them. Prior to marrying them, these officers smuggled food and drugs into the jail. They've corrupted social workers to do their bidding for them, and occasionally police officers too. They'll find a weak spot. They'll befriend you, try to figure out what makes you tick. If you're short of cash, they'll get you cash. If it's drugs, they'll get you drugs. If it's women, they'll get you that too. They're excellent manipulators. The gang only has about 300 made members, which are branded, certified, the real deal. But the Mexican Mafia's number swells into the thousands when you count those who work with La M in the hopes of becoming carnales, or brothers, he said. In a 2015 Texas gang threat assessment, the State Department's of Safety estimated there were 4,700 Texas Mexican Mafia members and associates organized into clearly defined ranks and a paramilitary model. So, that being said, now we're going to go to the killing of Julian Pesina. Happened a little after 10 p.m. on May 4th, 2014, outside of Julian Pesina's notorious ink tattoo and piercing shop in Balcones Heights. Julian Pesina was supposed to be meeting with Jerry Spooks Hidrogo. Both men were members of the gang known as the Texas Mexican Mafia. Remember, Pesina was also a 7-year veteran police officer for Balcones Heights. The meetup was intended to be Pesina paying the weekly tax or dime, and that's what they're talking about he owed to the Texas Mexican Mafia for selling drugs. So, street gang's out. You got an established street gang making moves, selling drugs. The Texas Mexican Mafia is going to come in and say, okay, we're more powerful than you. We're scarier than you. We're going to murder you if you say no. So you're going to pay us 10% of whatever you make. And if you have a brain and if you're smart, you're going to say, okay, no problem. And Julian Pesina, because he was part of the gang, but he has a successful business, and he was paying a 10% dime. Instead, though, it turned out into an execution-style murder when two men armed with a shotgun and a pistol showed up in a white car and opened fire on him. Remember how they said the textbook's killings went? Smaller weapon first, finish him off with the big gun. So, pistol first, shotgun second. But this wasn't your typical gang-related shooting. Shielding his iconic gang tattoos was a Balcones Heights police uniform. Pesina was living two very, very separate lives, and that is something to me. They talked about how the gang discovered him. According to federal court records, Pesina claimed to be a Texas Mexican Mafia member who had not reported to the gang in 6 years. So that's what I was saying at the beginning. It said he hadn't reported. A $6,000 fine he owed was levied as long as he started reporting to gang leadership, Jerry Adrogo and Ruben Reyes, and selling drugs to members. Ruben Reyes is a name I want you to remember. We're going to see his pictures coming across your screen as you're listening to me talk. During one of those drug deals, Pesina was outed as being a cop. That's when Hidrogo and Reyes started investigating Pesina's day job, and a hit was ultimately placed on him. What Pesina didn't know, his fellow officers were also looking into his ties to the Texas Mexican Mafia. Documents obtained by KSAT, news channel I got a lot of this information from, investigates show that an officer named Kenneth Ortiz brought up some concerns about Pesina, right? He brought him to the police chief, actually, Henry Dominguez, and they were actually dismissed by Dominguez, but So the chief dismisses, and that kind of, that opens up a whole nother Pandora's box. What's the level of corruption? And if you don't believe there's corruption in these police, in these smaller county police departments, you are tripping. There is definitely corruption at every level. And to believe that the Texas Mexican Mafia had a corruption with the chief, and I'm not saying, I have no proof, okay, don't get me wrong, I have no proof that Chief Henry Dominguez was dirty, but it's a little surprising that someone's bringing you some pretty hard evidence saying, hey, this guy is a gang member and is playing both sides, and you just dismiss it. Well, the FBI picked it right up, and they were looking into Pesina's shady ties. They had set up secret surveillance cameras and were watching his every move. The week of Pesina's murder, the FBI was planning on arresting him, which is crazy to me. It's like, some of the timing on this stuff is so crazy, and I just feel like there's more layers to it. Like, we don't know who was an informant. We're one of the guys that killed him, an informant. I mean, so the week he's due to get arrested by the FBI, by chance, he gets murdered. And I'm not saying, again, these are all things I'm just throwing out there. I don't have an exact opinion either way. I don't, and I have no proof either way. All right? I'm not claiming one of these gang members told or was working with police, or the police were dirty, or the police chief was dirty, but it's just, what a coincidence that on the week he gets gunned down, he was due to be arrested by the feds. So, there were 4 men ultimately arrested for Pesina's murder. We're going to kind of go one at a time here. Jerry Spooks Idrogo was the driver of the white car that pulled up the day of Pesina's death. He also helped organize the hit. Idrogo had fled San Antonio and was arrested in Toledo, Ohio. When he was caught, he agreed to testify against Cardona and Santibanez. We're going to get to them in a minute. While on the stand, he also now this is crazy, he admitted to another murder of Billy Padilla, another Texas Mexican Mafia member who was killed in 2013 for failing to turn over drug money. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison in 2017. Now, this is kind of a big dog. Ruben Menes Reyes, he's the bald one with a scary face. I do want to know how he got the beat up look in the mugshot I put up here. Wonder what happened. But Ruben Menes Reyes, this dude's scary, who's also known as Menace, pled guilty in July 2016 to ordering the hit on Pesina. Reyes also killed Texas Mexican Mafia members Ulysses Farias in front of his family in October 2013. It was revealed in court he also shot and killed Texas Mexican Mafia members Mark Lefty Bernal, Carlos Worm Chapa, and Johnny Smiley Solis in January 2014. That's a serial killer, folks. I don't care what you say. That's a serial killer. That is somebody that likes killing a little too much. And I'm saying that kind of in jest. When I read off 5-6 names, it's like, okay, So in 2016, Reyes, not surprisingly, was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences. Yeah, man, he, killed in front of his family. That's something's off, dude. But that's what, in one of the news things I put up, man, when you join a gang like this, they've been killing each other for years. The blood in, blood out is real. These guys are the best of the best. You cannot just join. You have to be invited in. Then there's a strict vetting process. And I'm not trying to give these guys a bunch of, shout out, but I do respect the way they move. I do respect in how they organize. I do respect in their diligence, and you better toe the line. You better not mess up. You better not lose any drug money. You better not get a hit, basically a job to go kill somebody and mess it up. You better not talk to the cops, or we're going to find you. We're going to kill you. We're going to kill your family, maybe. We're going to kill your freaking goldfish. That's how this stuff works. And Ruben Reyes is a shining example of that. The last 2 that were arrested, Alfredo Freddy Lowe Cardona and Jesse J. Santibanez. I will say this. I like these nicknames a lot more than the white supremacy video I did. Names like Schizo were on the last video I did, and I just wouldn't want that nickname. But I like these ones. Freddy Lowe, Jay, Menace, Spooks. Okay, I can roll with that. Both Jesse Santibanez and Alfredo Cardona were found guilty in 2017 of 1 count of murder in aid of racketeering and 1 count of discharging a firearm during a murder in aid of racketeering. On the day of Pesina's murder, Santibanez and Cardona ambushed him outside of his tattoo shop. It was caught on camera and shown in court. After the shooting, the pair went to Cardona's then-girlfriend's apartment to change clothes, wash off, and clean off the gun. Court records show that they studied Pesina's routine and dug a hole to bury him in. Both men were sentenced to a life in feds. Man, these guys are not dumb. These guys are not... I mean, there was a camera, but there's cameras everywhere. That's why it's really hard to get away with murder nowadays. It was planned. Studied his routine. That stuff cops does. That's what I'm saying. They move like the military. A little bit more talking about Texas Mexican Mafia. The gang has grown a lot through the years. They are now a generational gang that likes to keep a low profile and is still very active. So generational gang means your grandpa, your dad, now your sons. There are generations of families enveloped in all this. They do not want, quote, they do not want to garner attention from law enforcement or from the community. In the end, they are still a criminal enterprise, and so they don't want a lot of attention. You know, when I say they are large, they're now spanning states now, Rodriguez said. And now they're raising their children into it. And so you know the gang membership doesn't go away. It now is more strength, and it's become family. And that makes them very dangerous and very large. What's fascinating, quote, another quote, what's fascinating for me about them is not only do they speak their own language and they have their own culture and they have their own identity, they live among us. And most people aren't aware. You know, you go to a barbershop and there they are, cutting your hair. In the case of Pesina, doing your tattoos. I mean, it's just an interesting world that lives among us, and most people are unaware of it, end quote. Yeah, just very, very interesting. Julian Pesina, though, man, that's, you know, I'm a little torn because it's like I get wanting, I guess in my own experience, I get the whole wanting to do good but live in bad thing. Obviously not on this level. I'm not trying to compare that. I just, you know, I was raised right. I had good people behind me, but I chose a path that was bad, and I remember trying to toe the line of both, right? I'm out all night, using drugs, getting high, running in the streets, doing the wrong thing, but then I'm going to Sunday church the next morning, or I'm going to a family birthday party, or I'm coming home hugging my mom, and I've been up for a day, and I've been doing blow all night, and I've been whatever, you know, cheating on my girl. I just am saying, you know, you talk about living a double life. I think a lot of us do, in a way. Even us that don't, even if you are listening, you don't struggle with drug addiction, right? Or gang issues, or a combination of both, or whatever. You want to live right, man. You can't put a price on peace. And I look at Julian Pesina, you know, had a tattoo shop, was a cop, had money, you know, had that cool dog, tatted up, good-looking guy, probably had girls. But I can't imagine he had a lot of peace in his life. And what's interesting is, like, he's on his social media posting he's a cop. I mean, if you're running with gang members in the Texas Mexican Mafia, it's like, I don't know, you were asking for it. I mean, it's like I read, they found him on social media. Well, it's like, well, duh. You know, it's like that's what this generation is. It takes 2 seconds to look somebody up. I figured they would look him up before they let him in. Or at some point they might check, like, hey, you know what? Julian hasn't been coming around for some years now. What's he doing? Or the fact he's a cop in the same town he's doing these drug deals. It's just like, the fact that those paths didn't cross to me, that is just surprising to me. And that's why I wonder if this story even goes deeper in levels of law enforcement and on the gang side. That's where I'm saying, like, were there people keeping him safe? Were there people that were having his back on both sides, kind of in the shadows? I would really, really like to know what you guys think. Please comment below. I want to know. This is what I want you to write about. I want to know what you guys think about what I'm saying. But there's a lot more to the story. I want to know what you think about the chief not wanting to press the issue when an officer brought that, hey, Julian Pesina might be dirty. He might be a bad cop. I want to know. I want to know if you guys think there was a lot more corruption going on. than just one. Basically, the way they tell the story, it was one cop who'd been running with the Texas Mexican Mafia for however long. He got killed over it. Wash our hands. End of story. One bad apple. I don't necessarily buy that. Let me know what you think. Until next time. Peace.